Kangmina sat on her porch watching the twin suns set over the hills of New Busan. The orange light made the trees look like they were on fire. She sipped her tea and closed her eyes. After 30 years of service to Earth Command, she had earned this peace. Her small house sat alone on a hill, far from the busy colony center. She liked it that way. At 62, her body still moved with the grace of someone much younger, but she had grown tired of war, tired of death, tired of being the one who had to make the hard choices. The soft beep of her communication pad broke the silence. Mina sighed. No one called her these days except her daughter, who lived on Earth with her family. She tapped the screen. Instead of her daughter's face, the stern image of Admiral Lee appeared. "Ambassador Kang," he said, his voice hard and formal. "Your retirement is over. Earth needs you." Mina's back straightened automatically. Old habits died hard. What has happened? The Raxar. They've crossed the neutral zone. 3 colony ships destroyed. Thousands dead. Mina felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. The Raxar were a coalition of warrior species from another galaxy. They saw other life forms as either prey or slaves. Humans, with their relatively small build and lack of natural weapons, were seen as easy targets. "Send the fleet," she said simply. "We can't, not yet." The Admiral looked down at something off-screen. "They've asked for talks. They want a human diplomat to come to their flagship." Now Mina understood. A trap. Almost certainly. The Admiral nodded. "But we need time to get our civilians out of the border systems. We need someone to go and keep them talking." Mina knew what he was really asking. Not just any diplomat would do. He needed someone who could handle themselves if things went wrong. Someone who might not come back. "Why me? I'm just an old woman now." The Admiral's face softened slightly. "Because you're the best we ever had, Mina. And because they won't see you coming." 3 days later, Mina stood in her bedroom looking at the uniform laid out on her bed. The dark blue fabric with silver trim marked her as an Earth diplomat. She had worn many uniforms in her life, but this one felt the strangest. A knock at her door brought her attention back to the present. "Ambassador, the ship is ready." The voice belonged to Park Jin, her young aide assigned for this mission. He was 26, fresh out of diplomatic school, eager to serve. He didn't know who she really was, what she had been, what she could still do if necessary. "I'll be right out," she called. Mina opened a small box on her dresser. Inside was a simple metal pin, an hourglass with a broken chain wrapped around it. The mark of the executioners. Earth's last resort against existential threats. There had only ever been 50 humans given this rank. Mina had been the 43rd. She pinned it to the inside of her collar, where it would remain hidden unless she chose to reveal it. The ship that would take them to the Raxar flagship was small and plain. It was called the Peacemaker, which Mina found darkly funny. The name was painted on the hull in both Earth Standard and the common trading language used between species. Inside, Park Jin was checking supplies and going over diplomatic protocols on his tablet. He looked up when Mina entered. "Ambassador Kang, I've prepared all the standard greeting forms and—" "Put those away," Mina said gently. "The Raxar don't care about our protocols." Park looked confused. "But the diplomatic handbook says—" "The handbook was written for species that want peace." Mina strapped herself into the pilot's seat. She had insisted on flying herself. "The Raxar only understand strength." "Then why are we going?" Park asked, taking the seat beside her. Mina started the launch sequence. "To buy time. And to deliver a message." The small ship lifted off smoothly. Through the view screen, Mina watched as New Busan grew smaller beneath them. She wondered if she would ever see it again. "What do you know about the Raxar?" she asked Park as they broke atmosphere. The young man sat up straighter. "They're a coalition of 3 species from the Andromeda galaxy. They arrived in our galaxy about 50 Earth years ago. They're highly militarized and have conquered several systems. They see themselves as predators and other species as prey." "Good." Mina nodded. And do you know why they've asked for talks instead of just attacking? Park frowned. I assumed they want to offer terms of surrender. The Raxar don't offer terms, they take what they want. Mina programmed the jump coordinates. They want this meeting because they're cautious. They've heard stories about humans. Stories? But we're physically weaker than most spacefaring species. Mina smiled slightly. Yes. And that makes them nervous. Species that look weak but stand their ground often have hidden strengths. The ship's computer announced they were ready for the jump to faster-than-light travel. Mina activated the drive, and the stars outside stretched into lines of light. What should I do when we meet them? Park asked, his voice steady despite the fear Mina could see in his eyes. Stay quiet. Watch. Learn. Mina's voice grew harder. And be ready to run if I tell you to. The journey to the meeting point took 16 hours. Mina spent most of it in quiet meditation, preparing herself mentally for what was to come. Park studied the limited information they had on Raxar culture and customs. When they dropped out of FTL travel, the Raxar flagship was waiting. It was enormous, at least 20 times the size of their small diplomatic vessel. Its hull was covered in weapon arrays and decorated with what Mina recognized as trophies from defeated enemies. That's intimidating, Park whispered. Mina said nothing as she opened a communication channel. Raxar flagship, this is Earth diplomatic vessel Peacemaker. Ambassador Kang Mina and Aide Park Jin request permission to dock as arranged. The response came in a deep, rumbling voice that made the ship's speakers vibrate. Permission granted, human vessel. Follow the guidelights. Any deviation will be considered hostile action. Mina expertly piloted their ship toward the massive hangar that had opened in the side of the Raxar vessel. Guidelights pulsed along a specific path and she followed them precisely. As they entered the alien ship, Park gasped. The hangar was filled with Raxar warriors, 7-foot-tall reptilian beings with armored scales and powerful bodies. They carried weapons larger than a human arm and wore armor decorated with bones. Remember, Mina said quietly as she powered down the engines. No matter what happens, no matter what they say or do, show no fear. Humans have one advantage here. What's that? Park asked, swallowing hard. Mina stood and straightened her diplomatic uniform. For just a moment, her fingers touched the hidden insignia under her collar. They don't know what we're capable of, she said, and I intend to keep it that way for as long as possible. The outer door hissed open, and the hot, sulfur-scented air of the Raxar ship flowed in. Mina took a deep breath and stepped forward. To meet their hosts, her face a mask of calm diplomacy. The game had begun. Mina walked down the ramp of the Peacemaker with her back straight and her eyes forward. Park stayed 2 steps behind her, as was proper for an aide. A group of 5 Raxar warriors waited for them. The leader of the group was easy to spot. Was taller than the others, with deep red scales and a scar that ran from his eye to his jaw. Gold rings pierced the frills around his neck. I am Sub-Commander Tark, the red-scaled warrior said. His voice was deep and rough, like stones rolling down a hill. You will follow me to the war chamber. Mina nodded once. Thank you for your welcome, Sub-Commander. Tark made a sound that might have been a laugh. This is not a welcome, human. This is an escort. The group of warriors surrounded the 2 humans. Mina noticed how they kept their distance, as if afraid to get too close. Interesting. They feared humans even though they were bigger and stronger. They walked through massive corridors. The walls were made of dark metal and decorated with weapons and what looked like bones. The air was hot and smelled of sulfur. Mina breathed steadily, not showing any discomfort. Beside her, Park was sweating, but he kept his face calm. Their ship is a museum of death, Park whispered to her. Mina gave him a small nod. Everything here is meant to scare us. Remember that. After walking for 10 minutes, they reached a set of large doors covered in symbols. Tark pressed his hand to a panel, and the door slid open. Inside was a room that could only be called a war chamber. A large round table sat in the center. Around it were seats made for the much larger Raxar. Maps and holographic displays covered the walls, showing star systems and battle plans. At the far end of the room, on a raised platform, was a throne-like chair. In it sat the largest Raxar Mina had ever seen. His scales were black with gold patterns. Instead of armor, he wore a robe made from what looked like the skin of some unfortunate creature. Around his throat was a necklace of teeth. "Warlord Keth," Tark announced, bowing his head. "The human representatives." Keth's yellow eyes fixed on Mina. His mouth, filled with sharp teeth, curved into what might have been a smile. "So small," he said. "The mighty humans send me a tiny female elder." 3 other Raxar stood near Keith's throne. They laughed at his words, a harsh sound that filled the room. One of them, with blue-green scales, stepped forward. "I am Warlord Vex," he said, second to Keth in the hegemony. "I have fought your kind before." "Then you know we prefer peace," Mina said calmly. More laughter. "Sit," Keth commanded, pointing to the table. Mina and Park took seats at the table. The chairs were too big for them, making them look even smaller. This was on purpose, Mina knew. Another way to make humans seem weak. Keth did not sit at the table. He remained on his throne, looking down at them. Vex and the other 2 warlords stood beside him. "You have attacked human ships," Mina began. "Killed human civilians. This breaks our treaty." Keth waved a clawed hand. "Treaties are for equals. You are not our equals." "We wish to live in peace," Mina continued. "We propose new borders that give you the mining rights to the Talus Belt. In return, you offer what will soon be ours anyway?" Vex interrupted. "This is not a negotiation. This is us telling you how things will be." Park shifted in his seat. Mina could sense his anger, but he stayed quiet as she had told him. "Perhaps I should explain what will happen now," Keth said, leaning forward on his throne. "We will take the Talus Belt. We will take the human colonies on Nexus and Barrow. Your people there will serve us or die. This is mercy. We could take more." Mina folded her hands on the table. "And if we refuse?" The warlords laughed again. "Look around you, Elder," Keth said. "This ship is one of 30. Each carries 10,000. Warriors. Your fleet has what? 20 ships? Your soldiers are half our size. Your weapons are toys compared to ours." "Numbers and size are not everything," Mina said. Keth stood from his throne and walked to the table. He towered over the seated humans. Your kind always says this, before they beg for their lives. He placed his large hands on the table and leaned down to look Mina in the eye. "Do you know why we asked for a diplomat instead of just attacking? Because we wanted to see the fear in human eyes, to taste your weakness." "And what do you taste, Warlord Keth?" Mina asked, meeting his gaze without flinching. For a moment, Keth looked uncertain. Then he stepped back. "Bring the terms," he commanded one of the other warlords. A tablet was placed before Mina. On it was a list of demands written in the common trade language. Mina read it carefully. It was worse than she had thought. The Raxar wanted not just the border colonies, but access to Earth itself. "These terms would make humans slaves in all but name," she said. "Yes," Keth agreed. "It is your natural place." Park couldn't stay silent any longer. "These terms are an insult. Earth Command will never—" "Silence, whelp!" Vex snapped, stepping forward with a raised hand. In one smooth motion, Mina was on her feet between Park and Vex. She moved so quickly that even the alien warrior looked surprised. "My aide speaks out of turn," Mina said, her voice still calm. "But he is under my protection." Vex lowered his hand slowly. His eyes narrowed as he looked at Mina more closely. "You move quickly for an elder," he said. "Humans are full of surprises," Mina replied. She turned back to Keth. "These terms are unacceptable. I am authorized to offer a counter-proposal." Keth returned to his throne. "Speak then. It changes nothing but amuses me." Mina began to outline Earth's offer. As she spoke, she noticed Vex watching her with increasing interest. His eyes kept moving to her collar, as if trying to see something. "Enough," Keth interrupted after a few minutes. "Your words bore me. You will sign our terms or we attack your worlds. It is simple. War with humans will not be simple, Mina said. The warlords laughed again, but this time Vex's laugh seemed forced. What threat can you offer, tiny human? Keth asked. Your ships are few, your weapons are weak, your bodies break easily. True, Mina agreed. Which is why we had to become very good at solving problems. Creatively. She reached up and adjusted her collar, letting it fall open just enough to reveal the edge of the insignia pinned inside. Vex saw it first. His laughter stopped abruptly. His eyes widened. Warlord, he said urgently to Keth. Look at her badge. Keth leaned forward, squinting at the small metal pin. What is this? Some human decoration? But Vex had stepped back, his hand moving to his weapon. That symbol, he said, his voice lower now. I have seen it before. On New Terra, when our advance force was sent to test human defenses. Now all the warlords were looking at Mina's collar. She adjusted it again, fully revealing the hourglass wrapped in a broken chain. The executioner insignia, Mina said simply. I had hoped not to need it today. A heavy silence filled the war chamber. The laughter of the warlords had died as quickly as if someone had shut off a machine. Warlord Vex had taken 3 steps back from the table, his hand still on his weapon. Impossible, Keth said, but his voice had lost some of its power. The executioners are a myth, stories told to scare young warriors. If only that were true, Mina said softly. She remained seated, her posture relaxed. Park looked at his mentor with new eyes. He had never seen the insignia before, but the reaction of the Raxar told him everything he needed to know. Whatever an executioner was, it frightened even these massive warriors. 3 cycles ago, Vex said, his voice low, we sent our best, warriors to test the defenses of the human colony on New Terra. 100 elite soldiers. He paused, his eyes fixed on Mina's insignia. Only I returned. What happened? Keth demanded. A human, just one, wearing that symbol. Vex's claw pointed at Mina's collar. Our warriors fell one by one. Some were found with broken necks. Others with their own weapons turned against them. Some simply disappeared. One human did this? Another warlord asked, disbelief clear in his voice. The human was a male, larger than this one, Vex said, nodding toward Mina. But size means nothing to their kind. Mina cleared her throat gently. All eyes returned to her. His name was Kim Suho, she said. My student. He was the 47th executioner. And what are you? Keth asked, no longer mocking. I am the 43rd, Mina replied. Now shall we return to our discussion of peace terms? Keth's eyes narrowed. You think one human, even an executioner, can threaten us here? We have 10,000 warriors on this ship alone. True, Mina agreed. But consider this. If Earth Command sent me, an executioner, as a diplomat, what does that tell you about how seriously we take this situation? Park was stunned. His mentor, the quiet, polite ambassador, was something else entirely. Something that made even these fearsome aliens step back in alarm. Let me tell you about the executioners, Mina continued, her voice still calm and conversational. When humans first went to the stars, we were not the strongest or fastest species. We had no natural armor or weapons. What we did have was adaptability and determination. She stood slowly, and though she was half the size of any Raxar in the room, they all tensed. Earth Command created the Executioner program. Only 50 humans have ever held this rank. We are the last option when diplomacy fails. When a species threatens not just human interests, but human survival. Threats do not work here, Keth growled, but his eyes kept darting to the guards at the door, as if checking they were still there. This is not a threat, Warlord Keth. This is context for our negotiations. Mina walked around the table slowly. You should know who you are dealing with. What happened to the 99 warriors? Asked the third warlord, speaking for the first time. His scales were gray, and he wore more decorations than the others. Vex answered before Mina could. The human moved like water, fast, then slow, sometimes visible, sometimes not. He used our own fear against us, made us fire on each other in the dark, set traps that we walked into. By the third day, warriors were killing themselves rather than wait for him to find them. A good account, Mina nodded. Suho was always thorough. But you left out the message. What message? Keth demanded. The message that Vex was allowed to survive to deliver, Mina said, looking directly at the blue-scaled warlord. What were his exact words, Warlord Vex? Vex's scales seemed to pale. Tell your leaders that humans prefer peace, but we do not fear war. The choice is yours. Mina smiled slightly. Suho was always good with words. Park watched this exchange with growing understanding. The Earth Command he knew was peaceful, focused on diplomacy and trade. But clearly there was another side to it, a side that even these warlike aliens feared. If you are truly an executioner, Keth said, his voice a mix of doubt and worry, why come here alone? Why not bring your fleet? Who says I'm alone? Mina asked. The warlords looked at each other. We scanned your ship, Tark said from near the door. There are only 2 humans aboard. True, Mina agreed. But the executioner program doesn't rely on numbers or size or strength. We rely on planning, on patience. She tapped her communication badge. Mina to Peacemaker. Status report. A voice came through the badge. All systems nominal, Ambassador. Timer reads 6 hours until Phase 2. Thank you. Mina turned back to the Warlords. When Earth Command sent me, they also sent insurance. 5 more executioners are currently on standby. If we do not return to our ship in the next 6 hours, they have their orders. You lie, Keth snarled, but his voice lacked conviction. Perhaps, Mina agreed, but can you afford to take that chance? Ask Vex what 1 executioner did to 100 of your best warriors. What do you think 5 could do if they were ordered to consider the Raxar an existential threat to humanity? The war chamber fell silent again. The warlords exchanged glances. Even Keth seemed uncertain now. The Zirakian Empire once stood where you stand now, Mina continued. They also thought humans were weak. They also refused to negotiate fairly. The dead zone, Vex whispered. The other warlords looked at him sharply. The dead zone was once the Zirakian Empire, Vex explained. 12 worlds, all lifeless now. No one knows exactly what happened. The Zirakians just stopped communicating. When other species investigated, they found empty cities. No bodies, no signs of battle. Just silence. We had nothing to do with that, Mina said, her voice soft. Officially, Park felt a chill run down his spine. The ambassador he had known for the past 3 days seemed like a different person now. Or perhaps this was who she had been all along, hidden behind a mask of diplomatic courtesy. What do you want? Keth asked finally. The same thing we have always wanted, Mina replied. Peace, fair borders, trade that benefits both our peoples. She returned to her seat and motioned for Park to hand her the tablet with Earth's proposal. These are our terms. They are fair. They acknowledge your strength while respecting ours. They give you mining rights in systems you covet while protecting human colonies. The gray-scaled warlord stepped forward. May I see these terms? Keth nodded reluctantly. The warlord took the tablet and read it carefully. These terms are indeed fair, he said after a few minutes. We get the resources we need. The humans keep their settlements. Both sides maintain a neutral zone between territories. Yazriel, you cannot seriously be considering this, Keth growled. I am considering survival, Warlord Yazriel replied. If what she says about the executioners is true. It could be a bluff, Keth interrupted. All eyes turned to Mina. It could be, she agreed. The question is, Warlord Keth, are you willing to bet the future of your people on that? Warlord Keth stood from his throne, his claws digging into the armrests. His yellow eyes burned with anger and fear. The war chamber was so quiet that Park could hear the hum of the ship's engines through the walls. I will not be threatened on my own ship. Keth growled. He reached for the large blade at his belt. In one smooth motion, too fast for Park to follow, Mina was no longer sitting. She stood just a step away from Keith, though no one had seen her move. The Warlord's blade was in her hand, not his. She held it casually as if it weighed nothing, though it was nearly as long as her arm. "This is a fine weapon," she said, studying the blade. "Perfectly balanced." The guards by the door raised their weapons, but none dared fire with their leader so close to the human. "Amazing," Warlord Yazril said softly. "I did not even see her move." Keth stood frozen, his hand still reaching for where his blade had been. "Ambassador," Park said, his voice tight with worry. "Perhaps we should return to diplomacy." Mina nodded and flipped the blade in her hand, offering the handle back to Keth. "My aide is right," she said. "We came to talk, not fight." Keth took his weapon back, slowly, his eyes never leaving Mina's face. "What are you?" he asked. "Just a human," Mina replied. "One who has seen enough war for one lifetime." She returned to her seat. "Shall we continue our discussion?" The warlords gathered around Keth, speaking in low voices. Park leaned close to Mina. "You never told me you were whatever an executioner is," he whispered. "You never needed to know," Mina said. "Until now. What happens if they still refuse to negotiate?" Mina's eyes were calm. "Then we try plan B. Which is, get back to the ship at all costs. After that..." She didn't finish the sentence. The warlords returned to the table. Keth remained standing, but his posture had changed. There was still pride there, but the mocking arrogance was gone. "We have questions," he said. "I will answer what I can," Mina replied. "These other executioners you claim are waiting. Where are they?" Mina smiled slightly. "If I told you that, they wouldn't be very effective, would they?" "There are ways to make humans talk," Warlord Vex said, but without much conviction. "There are," Mina agreed. "But not in the time you have left. My ship sends automatic updates to Earth Command. If those updates stop, or if they detect my life signs ending..." She shrugged. "Well, let's just say the Raxar hegemony would face challenges." "You speak of destroying our fleet," Keth asked. "Not necessarily. Executioners prefer precision over brute force. Key leaders, command centers, communication hubs." Mina looked directly at Keth. "A body can survive without a limb. It cannot survive without a head." The meaning was clear. The warlords would be targets. "Her words match what I saw on New Terra," Vex said. "The human did not try to kill all our warriors. He targeted the commanders first. Without leadership, the rest fell into chaos." Park watched as the mighty Raxar warlords considered their options. He had been taught that diplomacy was about finding common ground, about compromise. But this was something else. This was diplomacy backed by the threat of precise surgical violence. "If we agree to your terms," Keth said finally. "How do we? No other executioners won't come for us later?" "Executioners are not assassins," Mina said firmly. "We are the last defense of humanity, not its sword of conquest. If you honor the treaty, you have nothing to fear from us." Warlord Yazril placed the tablet with Earth's proposal on the table. "These terms give us what we need without unnecessary conflict. I suggest we accept them, Keth." Keth's scales flushed, darker with anger, but he was a leader who had survived many challenges. He knew when to stand firm and when to bend. "We will review your proposal," he said stiffly. "Return to your ship. We will call you when we have decided." "Of course," Mina said, rising from her seat. "We will wait 12 hours for your answer. After that, I must report back to Earth Command." As they turned to leave, Vex spoke again. "Executioner." Mina paused, looking back at the blue-scaled warlord. "The human on New Terra. He said something else before he let me go. Something I did not understand until now." "What was that?" Mina asked. He said, "We are small, but we are mighty because we must be. The universe does not tolerate weakness, so we turned our weakness into strength." Vex tilted his head. What did he mean? Mina considered her answer carefully. It means that humans had a choice when we went to the stars. Become stronger or become smarter. We chose both. The walk back to the Peacemaker was silent. The Raxar guards kept their distance, watching Mina with new respect and fear. Park had 1,000 questions, but he held them until they were safely aboard their ship. As the airlock door closed behind them, he turned to his mentor. Will they accept our terms? Mina removed her diplomatic jacket and began checking the ship's systems. They will. Keth may be proud, but he's not stupid. He knows I wasn't bluffing. Were you? Park asked. About the other executioners? Mina smiled. What do you think? I think. Park considered what he had seen. I think you're enough of a threat on your own, but they don't know that. Perception is a powerful tool in diplomacy, Mina said. Remember that. The communication panel beeped. Warlord Yazril's face appeared on the screen. Ambassador Kang, the hegemony has reviewed your proposal. We find the terms acceptable. Mina nodded. Excellent. I'm glad we could reach an understanding. There is one condition, Yazril continued. We wish to establish direct communication with Earth Command for future discussions. No more intermediaries. That can be arranged, Mina said. Though I should warn you, not all of our diplomats are as patient as I am. After the call ended, Park helped Mina prepare the ship for departure. I don't understand, he said. If Earth has executioners, why don't we use them more often? Why bother with diplomacy at all? Mina's face grew serious. Because violence, even precise violence, always has a cost. The executioner program exists not to win wars, but to prevent them. To remind potential enemies that humans are not easy prey despite our size. She plotted their course back to Earth. Today we prevented a war that would have cost millions of lives on both sides. That's what diplomacy backed by strength can achieve. As the Peacemaker pulled away from the massive Raxar flagship, Park looked back through the view screen. The alien vessel with all its weapons and warriors seemed less frightening now. What happens when you retire again? He asked. Will there be other executioners? There will always be executioners, Park, Mina said. As long as there are humans among the stars, there will be those who stand ready to protect them. But I hope. She watched as the stars began to stretch as they entered faster than light travel. I hope they will spend most of their time drinking tea and watching sunsets, just as I did. Park looked at his mentor with new eyes. This quiet woman had faced down alien warlords without flinching, had moved faster than seemed possible, had turned a certain war into peace through strength and wit. Will I ever know the full truth about the executioners? He asked. Mina smiled. Perhaps, but not today. Today I'd just like to go home and finish watching that sunset.